I'm a human geographer. I tend to work in the field of youth studies and leisure studies. So I'm really interested in how people use leisure to connect with places. And this feeds into some of the teaching that I do. So I work on the events management course. I teach undergraduate and postgraduate students, and I tend to teach around issues to do with critical issues in events, and also some of the contemporary issues that come out from those fields. So my research interests and expertise lie around understanding the role of independent leisure and unstructured play and activities in young people's use of outdoor spaces. And then within that, I'm really interested in the role of policy interventions for nature connectivity for young people and how effective they might be at creating meaningful engagements. My research is, it feeds into some government policy and government data that's coming out recently that shows that levels of nature connectedness tend to decline as young people approach their teenage years. But it also shows that there's a continual decline in engagement through the years. So, for example, there's recent monitoring that the government have brought out on children and young people's nature engagement that show that in 2013 and 14, for example, young people 81% of young people spent time outside. And in the most recent survey, that had reduced to 74%. So there's this continual decline. What's particularly interesting for my research is the continual decline in the proportion of young people who spend time outside without adults. So this has tended to drop from, in that same period, from 22% in 2013-14 to the most recent data, which shows that only 17% of those engagements are where young people are accessing these spaces individually. I think there's a clear knowledge gap that exists in thinking about how today's teenagers might choose to informally engage with nature and outdoor spaces without the kind of presence or facilitation of adults. So we can see a lot of schemes and interventions that come into play for young people that might be organised activities like Duke of Edinburgh or Scouts and things like that. But there's a kind of lack of knowledge about how young people might be able to access the outdoors more. And some recent research I'm doing at the moment shows that actually having access to spaces near to their homes is really important. Feeling safe in those places is really important to them as well. So my recent research work I'm currently conducting at the moment in partnership with some colleagues from the University of Brighton is working with young people. I'm doing some interviews with them and I've asked them to send in some photos of outdoor spaces in their local area that they like to use. And what we're thinking about is what makes a good outdoor space for young people. What was the role of outdoor spaces for young people during the COVID pandemic? And what a kind of youth-centered outdoor space should look like. As part of that work, I've kind of partnered up with a grassroots sports group who are seeking to create a new bike park on a kind of urban fringe area. And so this work is going to hopefully try and inform their plans. They have this vision to create a project that is about having a space that's free to use, that's a shared space, and that helps people to stay more active and healthy. So it's really important to speak to some of the young people about some of the issues that affect them and that might help them to access a space like that. Green spaces are really important for young people. So the work that I've done previously, I mean, there's lots of work out there that shows that accessing green spaces regularly is important for mental health, but also for physical health as well. So often when we're in a green space, we're doing something active. And so that can have kind of knock-on implications for your physical health as well. My research for young people actually shows how important green spaces are as somewhere that's free, that's, when you access somewhere independently, it allows you to do activities that you wouldn't be able to do elsewhere. Lots of my research is actually with young people who participate in informal sports, things like mountain biking and BMXing. And what's really interesting about that work is that they're actually really desperate to access these places, but some of the activities that they're doing in them are prevented. So, they're quite happy to spend hours and hours in a park making jumps or riding the same jumps over and over again. But sometimes they're prevented from that access because other users in that space might find that problematic. So I think actually there's a lot of really useful skills that young people can develop through being involved in green spaces, important skills for environmental citizenship. They can form kind of skills around collaborative governance. They can learn whole things about kind of landscape management just by doing and being in these kinds of spaces. Previously, I have worked with the Forestry Commission and Forest Research. I did my PhD with them, and that was looking at how to encourage more young people to use their estates. So I have experience of that. And then I've also worked with people who run mountain biking sites. Some previous research I've done has talked to managers of mountain biking sites about some of the issues around young people's access to these spaces. And what's interesting and that's come out of that is this the way in which young people can form these kind of collaborative negotiations with landowners or with managers to try and accommodate some of the activities that they want to pursue in those spaces. And again, the new research project I'm working on is with a shore and bike park. So I've been speaking to people in the local council and those kind of areas and the users themselves to try and find out some of the kind of critical issues in use of those spaces. Data that's coming out from the pandemic shows that there has been an increase in the use of green spaces over lockdown and whilst the pandemic has been going on. And I think what we've seen from that is the importance of locally accessible outdoor spaces, particularly as we see changes in the way in which people might be working from home. And so, there should be more investment and more consideration of the role of those green spaces near to people's homes as kind of easily accessible, low carbon routes to connect with nature more regularly.